something, well, really practical, everyday English conversations.
Mm-hmm. And our main goal, our mission, if you like, is to equip you with some common phrases for real life situations.
Right. And we're going to dive into one scenario that, let's be honest, most of us have probably faced that slightly awkward moment.
Oh, yeah.
When you forget someone's name. It's a bit cringeworthy, isn't it?
Definitely. And the source we're digging into today is actually an English learning conversation episode.
Yeah.
Which is great because it's built around the kind of language you genuinely hear, the stuff you actually need day to day.
Okay, right. So this original episode, it sort of kicks things off by just throwing you straight into a dialogue.
Yeah, pretty fast-paced, natural sounding.
Like being dropped right in the middle of things.
Exactly. And it centers around this really common, very relatable little slip-up.
And it's fascinating how universal this specific mistake is, isn't it?
It really is. It's that kind of minor social hurdle we've all probably tripped over at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. And that hurdle, that slightly embarrassing situation we're going to dissect today, is the classic forgetting someone's name.
The mental blank.
Totally. When you absolutely should know who you're talking to, but poof, gone.
Right. Oh, we've all been there. It's like walking a social tightrope.
Yeah.
And the original conversation we looked at, it gives some really good examples of how English speakers, try to navigate this kind of delicate moment.
Okay, good. So let's unpack some of the key phrases that crop up, little linguistic tools, maybe, we can add to our own toolkit.
Sounds good.
The first one you hear is in a bit of a hurry. That seems to pop up quite a lot.
It does, yeah. And it's such a handy phrase. It's basically a polite way to say, you're rushing, or you don't have a lot of time. What's interesting, I think, is how it acknowledges the other person, but implies it's just temporary. That makes it feel a bit more, socially acceptable than just blurting out, I'm busy.
That's a really good point. It definitely softens it, doesn't it? Makes the need to be quick less abrupt.
Mm-hmm.
And the source gives some really clear examples like, can you drive faster? I'm in a bit of a hurry. Perfect if you're running late.
Yeah, or maybe, I can't talk right now, I'm in a bit of a hurry. That's probably a very common way to sort of politely put off a chat.
Right, without being rude. And the third one they had was, I'm in a bit of a hurry, so I'll check these files later. So you can see how it fits in a work context too.
Exactly. It just gives a little reason, even if it's vague, which kind of smooths over the interaction.
Okay. Now, another term that comes up often, when you meet people, is contact details. Seems simple, but good to be clear on it.
Yeah, it is straightforward but useful. Contact details is just the umbrella term for, all the ways to reach someone.
Like name, email, phone.
Right, phone number, maybe even social media handles these days. Basically everything you'd find on a business card, whether it's a physical one or, digital.
Gotcha. Everything you need to stay in touch. Okay, and then there's a phrase that's almost like a universal get out of jail free card for little memory mistakes.
Yes.
Slipped my mind. I know I've used that one a lot.
Me too. Absolutely. Slipped my mind. It's just such a common, casual way to say you forgot something.
Yeah.
And what's neat about it is how it implies the forgetting wasn't deliberate.
Yeah.
Just a small mental hiccup.
Right.
That usually helps smooth things over.
Totally. The examples show that casual, unintentional vibe, like, I'm sorry, I forgot to reply. It just slipped my mind. It sounds so much better, more natural than just, I forgot to reply. Less like you're being accused of something.
It does. It suggests it wasn't a conscious choice to ignore it.
Okay.
And then the other one, oh no, your birthday completely slipped my mind. Which hopefully hasn't happened to anyone listening recently.
Fingers crossed. Okay, so moving on slightly. Let's talk about phrases for getting your bearings, location stuff. These can be real lifesavers.
Yeah, especially if you're somewhere new. And English has these handy, slightly different ways to talk about location. We start with around here.
Which is just a general way to ask if something's nearby, right?
Exactly.
Like the example, is there a bank around here? Super useful when you're out and about.
Definitely. And then there's right around the corner. This one means something is really close.
Like practically next door or just a tiny walk away.
Yeah, very close. The example was, there's a great restaurant right around the corner. Always good news to hear that.
Especially when you're hungry.
Right. And then for talking about places a bit less precisely, we have around there.
But this indicates more of a general area, not a specific spot.
The example they used, I used to live around there near Los Angeles. It gives you the general picture without needing coordinates.
That's it. Lets you talk about a general location without needing all the specifics. Handy? Okay. Now, switching gears a little, but it still fits with these social situations. How do you say you're not very good at something?
Ah, yes.
This ties in nicely with the whole forgetting names thing, because loads of people admit to that. The key phrase is terrible with.
Right. This is a very direct but often kind of lighthearted way to just own up to a weakness.
Yeah.
This can be a good way to sort of preemptively explain a potential mistake or just be honest about where your skills don't lie.
The examples are so spot on. I'm terrible with names. I think like half the population would probably agree with that.
Probably more. Such a common thing. And then he's terrible with directions. Another classic.
Especially now with GPS doing all the work for us.
True. And finally, she's terrible with numbers. So you see how that terrible with structure works for all sorts of things.
Yeah, really versatile for admitting shortcomings casually.
It is. It's a useful little tool for communicating annotations without sounding like you're just making excuses.
Right. Now, back in the original learning episode, after they introduce these phrases, the next thing they do is replay the first dialogue.
But slower this time.
Exactly. It's all about letting those phrases sink in, reinforcing your understanding. Now you know what they mean in context.
Yeah, hearing them used naturally again, but slowly enough that you can really pick them out. That helps solidify things. Good for listening practice, too.
Definitely. And then they have this little section, a fluency builder, they call it, a neat alternative for a super common greeting.
Instead of the standard, how are you?
Yep. They suggest trying.
How's it going? Yeah, it's just a bit more informal, sounds more relaxed.
It does.
I mean, how are you? Is totally fine, obviously. But how's it going? You can give your English a slightly more casual, friendly feel.
Laid back, yeah. The kind of thing you'd use with friends, maybe colleagues you know well. Informal setting.
Exactly. So worth a try next time you bump into someone you know. See how it feels.
Give how's it going a whirl.
It's just one of those small tweaks that can make you sound a bit more natural, more comfortable in everyday chats.
Okay, now we get to the real talk part, which I always like because it connects the language to actual life stuff.
Practical advice.
And the host of the original episode shares a really relatable story, maybe a bit awkward.
Yeah, the anecdote about forgetting a relative's name was it Uncle John at a family party?
Right. And having that split-second panic, needing to discreetly ask someone nearby, like, who is that again?
Oh, that feeling, the sheer social awkwardness. It's universal, isn't it?
Oh, I have definitely been there. That mind blank thing when you know the name. It's so familiar and, yeah, totally cringe-inducing.
Mortifying. And then the other host shares a really smart, practical tip for when this happens in, say, a business situation.
Yes. The simple but brilliant move, ask for their business card.
It's completely normal, standard practice in professional settings.
And boom, there's the name, spelled out for you, problem solved, subtly.
Exactly. And even if physical cards aren't really being used, the idea of noting down their email address works the same way. Names are usually clear in emails.
Yeah, it's a great way to jog your memory or just double-check the spelling later on. Really clever, practical strategies.
These are genuinely useful, real-world tips. It's not just about knowing the phrases, is it? It's about using them to handle tricky moments smoothly.
With a bit of grace and linguistic savvy.
Precisely. Taking the language and actually applying it effectively in real life.
Okay, so finally, the original episode wraps things up by playing that first dialogue one last time.
Back at natural speed.
Right. And by this stage, after breaking down the phrases, understanding them, maybe even practicing, it should feel much easier to follow.
Yeah, the goal is really to train your ear to catch these common bits of language in normal speed speech, build up that listening comprehension.
So as we kind of bring this deep dive to a close, you've now explored a really useful bunch of practical English phrases.
All linked to that common, sometimes slightly painful situation of forgetting a name.
Right. And hopefully you've got not just the phrases, but also some actual strategies for navigating those moments a bit more confidently.
Using language with a bit more finesse, perhaps.
Absolutely. And if you want to dig deeper into lessons like the one we based this on, the source mentioned their website, englishpod.com.
Ah, yes. They apparently have lots of resources there, plus ways to ask questions or share feedback.
Sounds like a good place for more learning and, connecting with others.
Definitely worth checking out if you're keen to keep improving.
So that wraps up this particular deep dive. We really hope you found it useful, maybe picked up some tips for your own conversations.
We'll be back again soon with another exploration.
Indeed. And maybe just a final thought to leave you with. Consider those subtle ways, the often unspoken things we do when a name just vanishes from our minds. What silent strategies have you developed to handle those little memory blanks?
Ooh, that's a good one. It's a fascinating, almost universal part of just being human and talking to each other, isn't it?